Yeah, I think this is quite so. Obviously, there's no real like easy way or like simple way of getting there. It's quite a complex path. Like for me, when I was growing up, I never saw an opportunity of playing in the Olympic Games. So I was just going about my normal life and trying to excel and try. And when I was pushed and nurtured into growing into playing rugby, that's when this opportunity came along. But yeah, at the same time, to be able to get to that point, obviously, is amazing. But it's just understanding the process of getting there. And I'm quite lucky in the way that everything's kind of laid out. So we knew how to qualify for the Olympics as a team, and then from there we understood how to understand how to then get into the squad and then how to obviously play in the team stuff. So that's really laid out, as well as obviously training and all those other methods as well. But yeah, to get to that point is so special, and there's no easy way of saying this is the ABC steps to get into becoming an Olympic medalist.
So on that point at the moment then, Dan, how is your mindset at the moment with the Olympics having been obviously postponed because of coronavirus and then pushed potentially to next year? Like, how have you overcome that adversity and that sort of change of course and direction?
Yeah, I think that was quite, so obviously with everything that's happening in the world with the pandemic and stuff and the effect it's had on the sporting world and the world in general, like going into lockdown 8 weeks ago, I think it was, or 6 weeks ago, and then obviously being away from training, having to home train and find ways to stay healthy and safe, as well as it was obviously a hard and struggle anyway. But then at the same time, when you're looking at trying to peak so when we were first into lockdown, we thought the Olympics were still on. So we were trying to find ways of staying fit and motivated, and there was that short-term, medium-term goal into the Olympics. But then as soon as it got cancelled, that's kind of when my kind of motivation kind of changed a little bit, and that's when I felt as though I didn't have much direction and much kind of reason to train, and I kind of lost my way a little bit in the sense of I knew obviously in the year's time that's when the Olympics would be, and I couldn't see an opportunity to actually why I was training for in the first place. So from that's when I kind of lost a bit of motivation, and that's when I kind of had to really sit down and think about what's going to be the best for myself over these next few weeks and into the next few months. And this is actually quite a nice period because it gives me an opportunity to refresh my mind and body and be at home with my family and grow those bonds and relationships more rather than being away every 2 weeks. And then from there, I'm able to work on more stuff away from rugby, and which kind of leads into rugby life away from rugby. And yeah, it's kind of a double-edged sword because I lose one, but then I gain so much more being at home with the family and stuff as well.
Nice. Okay, that's good. That's good to know. And then, when do you have any mini goals that you've got at the moment, going on the fact that the Olympics is next August potentially again? Have you got any mini goals that you've set yourself training wise at the moment? Like, how are you staying fit and healthy and things?
At the moment, so I got a bang on my knee back in February, end of February. So I've been rehabbing that. The biggest thing with that is just I'm becoming more motivated by getting myself back to running fast again. So at the moment I'm back running now after 6 weeks. I'm now slowly running and doing more faster stuff, so more speed drills, more high tempo running, but at the moment it's still quite slow and methodical. The thing that's keeping me sane and healthy is obviously one, exercising to be, again, if I wasn't playing rugby, I'd exercise anyway, just because it gives me so much more clarity, it gives me so much more of a balanced kind of feel. I'm not on edge the whole time, it just helps settle me down. And obviously the more you read into sport and you see the effect that exercise has on your lifestyle, it's just more so beneficial for me as a person. And obviously that helps me around the house as well, and being a better person in a way as well. But the short-term stuff is just getting myself back to playing rugby and getting ready for whatever may come in the next few months or weeks. Like, no one knows what's around the corner with rugby in the UK. No one knows when we're playing sevens next. So it's just about, like I said, getting that balance right of training to stay in shape, and finding ways to kind of further myself away from rugby.
Nice. And obviously you've got 2 little lads at home now, very young ones. We're talking kind of about sort of overcoming adversity and motivation and how to train to be an Olympian. How are you going to, or what top tips would you give to train Bodie and Zach to become an Olympic champion?
Uh, I don't know if there's a set way that if you follow the procedures, that's going to help you get them there. I think the main aspect now is just that play element. So you read about play within sport and how it's beneficial for team sports, for learning and stuff, and developing new skills, social skills, etc. But if you look at play for kids, like how beneficial it is for learning things like balance, coordination, decision making, all those kind of small skills you need to play at the elite level. Like now's a great time, and you know, kids at this age, there's a great. Zach's 4. Bodie's not walking yet. He's only 10 months old. But for someone like Zach, just getting them jumping, running, catching, changing direction, and all these small little skills, even though they are seen as playing and messing around and rolling and controlling their body, there's still bigger skills to it as well. So when they do develop and get older, they have that basis foundation to be able to control themselves and control their bodies, and understand how to maneuver themselves as well. So for us at home, it's just about, we've got a nice sized garden, so we can run around. I can throw things at him. He can throw things at me, so we can just mess around and just challenge each other, to be honest. And as kids get older, that's when you can add in more detail around stretching their learning and their understanding around balance, decision making, as in with balls and catching and hand-eye stuff. And the older they get, the more you can progress that as well.
Okay, so should we talk a little bit about that? So what we're covering off a little bit is sort of long-term athlete development and sort of leading towards obviously how to be an Olympian. So a lot of our parents on here will have kids sort of between the age of maybe 12 to 18 or something that are all aspiring athletes. The golden rule, supposedly by the researchers, that 10,000 hours of training can lead you to be an to be an elite athlete. Have you got any thoughts on that to start with? Like in terms of, do you think you've covered off 10,000 hours of training or good quality training to get you to be an elite athlete?
Yeah, so I think that's the big part there is it's 10,000 hours of purposeful training. So we could drive around for 10,000 hours of driving a car, but that doesn't mean we're up to the standard of a Formula One driver just because we do the 10,000 hours, which makes us elite. So that's 10,000 hours or 10 years of doing purposeful training. And I think that's the big part of how you see elite sports people. So me starting at 9 years old or whatever else, the whole point is purposeful training. And that's hard to replicate from a parent's point of view. But at the same time, it's more so about building the foundation. You see more purposeful training in a sporting environment. So a rugby academy or a football academy, or those academies where they have those intense skill basis, and that's kind of where you see more purchase and actually more opportunity of actually growing as elite sports people. So the end product is probably getting the 10,000 hours, but again, the foundation from a family standpoint and an individual basis is probably more powerful to get the building blocks for that end kind of goal.
Yeah, I think chipping in there as well, going back to the Singapore coaching role that you asked me that question about earlier, Hannah, I think a lot of the players had done a lot of training with their clubs, but coming together with the national team, we made the training a bit more purposeful. And we had a good strength and conditioning coach who was really switched on. We had the head physio from UFIT, Sam Brenning, who's absolutely spot on. And he came in and implemented a lot of stuff that stopped the boys getting injured, because a lot of our boys are top finance, top accountants, etc. in Singapore. So they're in super senior roles. So they're already sat down all day. They're already stressed. They're coming to training in the evening. And in that 9 months, we were cranking up to try and train 3 to 4 times a week. So they're coming and building up, doing all this sort of training. And then all of a sudden picking up injuries and stuff like that. So we had to put together some more purposeful training that stopped them picking up these injuries, and really trying to set small goals for like month by month that we could try and chip away at for the 9 months. And I think that goes a little bit with this sort of long-term athlete development stuff, is you need to build a really good team that surrounds you. So I know Dan said earlier, he spoke about his dad when he was a kid. Obviously, my parents were absolutely exceptional in taking me to places, making me sort of challenge myself a bit more rather than sit in my comfort zone at my local rugby club, Salisbury. They said, right, you've got this opportunity, you could go to change clubs, and willing to push me outside of my comfort zone a little bit, which I think is really, really important with this sort of stuff that we're talking about. So when you're trying to build your high class performance team, if you're a 14-year-old at the moment and you're looking at, right, what do I need in my life? It's not necessarily a YouTube video of Michael Jordan showing you how to do speed training, which is just to get him some cash in the box. It's more looking at, you know, who's around you and stuff like that. What can your parents help you with, and what can your peers help you with? Would you say that's up the right street, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's like growing up, I played a lot of sports, which was key to obviously development. But now I still lack. You can ask them the boys. You still lack some elements of your foundation skills, and even now we're still performing hand-eye. We're still performing skills like improve hand-eye coordination, on all those small foundations. There's never a time where you kind of end getting better in the department. So even though we do rugby 24/7 now, or professional sport people do that, the basis of what you do is still there. So it's seen differently from a 4-year-old to a 14-year-old to a 40-year-old. So the whole point is just understanding that the fundamentals of sports are key, and you can't lose that opportunity of actually growing those small little margins.
Nice, awesome. I've got one around mental resilience for you, going back to the Olympics. So obviously the last Olympics you went, or the first Olympics you went to, was also the very first Rugby Olympics. Is that correct? For sevens?
No, I think it was the first time it came back in. So I think it was in there like wartime, like 1930s or something.
Yeah. But recently it's the first.
Yeah, the most recent. Sorry, yeah, I was being a bit. Yeah.
So you obviously, did you go in with any expectations of a medal?
Well, I think we did, but we were always written off by everybody else around us. So again, the media had their input and didn't see us as medal hopefuls. So that was kind of against us. And at the same time, we were coming in from all the programs. So New Zealand, Fiji, South Africa, all these programs had been running for 4 years. So they've been doing solely sevens for 4 years, but as a group. So their core players of say 20, 25 players had been together for that period. Whereas we were 3 nations, England, Wales and Scotland, coming together for a 13-week block. So again, we'd played sevens beforehand, as for Scotland or for England, but then coming together as a team is so different. And I know obviously people say, well, you're playing rugby, what's so hard to understand? It's more so the glue and that understanding who you're playing with and the dynamics and just the energy that you're all bringing in together. And yeah, in any team sport, you're as strong as the weakest person kind of thing. So understanding who's in the squad, and obviously what their strength they bring to the team as well. But yeah, it was hard initially getting everybody on board, because looking back to 2016, so to paint the picture, we played Scotland at Twickenham in the London Sevens, the last tournament of the year, 2016. Lost them in the final, and then 3 weeks later we came back into camp with the 3 teams of England, Wales and Scotland, 28 players. So you've just lost to Scotland a few weeks previously, and now you're coming into a squad together to then go and perform at the pinnacle of your career 13 weeks later. Yeah. So that was always going to be a bugbear and the elephant in the room, and that was something we spoke about straight away, and it's something that needed to be aired. Because at the same time, it was this thing of, even though we are coming together and we've been written off for everybody else, we either go one of 2 ways. We either work together as a team and really buy into this process of getting us there, or we kind of go off with England or Scotland and Wales and our little kind of cliques, and then we're never gonna win. We're gonna fail straight away. So that was a big part of our development as a team when we first came together.
Nice. And then, so obviously you achieved the silver. Going into the Olympics next year, if you get picked, obviously, when you get picked, sorry. What's your medal expectation there? Now, do you look at it completely differently from the first one, where it was a new ball game, whereas now you're a seasoned vet in the Olympics? Is it different?
I don't. So obviously, the Olympics is massive, and obviously everybody will up their game, but leading into into the Olympics, we would have played, say, potentially, depending on the next few months ago, we would have played a season of sevens. So we already understand, and most teams would have actually played the players they're playing in the Olympics or got selected that way. So you have an understanding of who you're playing against. From there, it's just working out how to be the best team on the day and in those games. So as people who watch sevens have seen, like some games are so close now and things can be decided on a kickoff or a referee decisions at times, which is always a good thing, or a bounce of the ball. So it's just knowing that if you get your preparation right, then you're going to be in a good place. And everybody out there is going to have the same goal, want to win gold. So it makes it such small margins. And that's where you have to understand the dynamics of being in a team environment and how to best maximize your team leading into those massive pinnacle of the sport, really.
So I'm just going to jump in here real quick. Thank you for that, Dan. And we just have like loads of questions coming in. So I think this kind of relates to, the stuff you're saying earlier about kids and, laying those foundations. Chim Gale asks, what are some important things parents can do to help their kids in their sporting journeys? Aside from what you've already mentioned, kind of thing.
Yeah. I think it's just understanding the obviously your children. They obviously at that age of young teens, they already think they know everything. So it's understanding how you can communicate with them and guide them in the right way, and that's kind of probably the hardest thing, because it's hard for kids growing up to actually want to listen to their parents. And they
what
probably
are you talking about? Teenagers know everything.
Well, yeah, this is it. It's probably worth just trying to show how the parents can support the development. So there's the indirect way of actually supporting them through external coaches, etc., and the direct way of actually hands-on coaching. And I remember when I was younger, my dad was a great support to me, but he wasn't the best coach. So it's just understanding if he was better upskilled in that manner of knowing how to actually coach me, then I think I would have been a lot more cooperative with him. And that's probably the biggest improvement for parents to understand how to, rather than expecting the kids to understand them.
Yeah, I would probably agree. I don't know if it might just be a UK-based thing, but it's kind of rugby is one of those sports where you, as a kid, your dad ends up coaching you in your age group. And it's okay. I know I got to about, I think maybe the age of 12 or 13, and then that was clashing heads with my dad coaching me every weekend. And he, fair play, stepped back and said, right, let's change this course. Like, he didn't coach my age group any longer. And it wasn't that he wasn't a bad coach. It's just this parent child relationship or parent team relationship, you come on kind of bang heads a lot. So I think what Dan just said, like upskilling yourself as a parent and understanding what a kid's going through at that age, like trying to remember when you were 14, it's quite hard to remember, but like going back through and remember that they're in the peak of their adolescent period, their hormones are all over the place. They do think they know best, especially now with potentially the millennials as well. It's an even harder group to manage, and it has to be dealt with totally different. So staying up with current affairs and how to try and deal with your kids, I think is really important. And yeah, just trying to create a relationship with them, which it potentially isn't so regimented that it's like, you do this, I say this, you do that. Can you, like Dan was saying, get out in the garden with your kid and actually interact and have some ball games and stuff like that, or even like these are key times now during the lockdown. Can you go out and go for a little walk or whatever it is with your teenager and just spend some time away from all the pressures of life and just have a general chit chat about stuff that's going on, and it doesn't even have to be related to that sport. I think would be quite key. And I think Dan touched on it earlier as well, just getting them to play. Chim will know this more than anyone as well. The lad that asked the question is trying to get them to play as many sports as possible, because every sport will teach you a different discipline, and every sport will teach you a different skill, and you'll get a coach from a different background that might connect with your child better than potentially your rugby coach or your athletics coach.
Yeah.
No, I think that's fantastic. And I like that split of that they can be supportive, but sometimes not kind of constructive, and splitting that up, getting those skills as well as the skills of being supportive. Because I think most parents are supportive, and then it's another side to be constructive. And you're on screen.
We've got a streaker.
Yeah, well, a nice glass of wine. Keep on.
Supportive, not constructive. There we go.
Yeah.
And Deborah asked, I think it's a really good question, especially very, very relevant to the lockdown and everything that's going on, is in that motivation slump that you described a while ago, Dan, did you find that when you accepted the cancellation of the Olympics, you were able to move into building quality time with the family and refreshing your mind and body? Like, did it take that kind of cancellation to accept that?
Yeah, so I think indirectly I was probably a bit of a menace because I kind of didn't know myself what direction it was going in. So you're kind of just plodding along, kind of in a way it felt as though I was ticking a box because I couldn't train to my full potential because we didn't have the gym access. So it was just a case of me just kind of, I felt as though I was ticking a box. So then my probably resentment then kind of went back into the house. So yeah, it kind of just felt as though I was probably knocking my head against the wall in that manner. But then from my family's point of view, I probably became a lot more sociable or a lot more easier to work with, cooperative with things because I had less of a burden on it. And I think that's probably looking back over the last 4 weeks when we first came into lockdown and the ums and ahs didn't know what's happening with the Olympics, like that power of now I know there's no real short-term goal. There's no pressure of I'm not at my best. I'm not going to perform well at the Olympics. All these negative thoughts were coming into my head kind of thing. So now I know that I've got an opportunity now to actually plan, spend time with my family, grow, enjoy that. But at the same time, know that training is more of a secondary. I'm more there to be a father and a dad than a husband than to actually be an Olympic athlete at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, and just...
Well, something we spoke about in the week, isn't it, Dan? That like when you get a setback, you have to accept it before you can move on. And I think you know,
exactly.
Olympics and stuff, and I gave an analogy of a client that I've got who can't quite get their head around the fact that this lockdown's happened, and they were on a really good course with their nutrition, and now completely thrown themselves off this course because they haven't quite accepted that they have to stay at home and life doesn't continue with their sort of their busybody sort of life in London job. And now they don't have their routine, which should be really easy now because they're at home, they've got everything there for them. All of a sudden, because they haven't accepted this, that there's a complete change, they've thrown themselves under the bus and they've lost all of their sort of results and gains that they were getting before because they can't get this acceptance. And that's where I've had to hone my coaching back with them. And we're not talking about nutrition any longer. We're now talking about just trying to get back on track with life as such. And it's the fact that it's the unknown, isn't it? When are we going to be back able to use the gym? When are we going to be back in normal life for Dan? When's he going to be allowed to go back to training and stuff? With the fear of the unknown, you have to set yourself short goals. So like a 2-week goal. Or for us, it's every 3 weeks, Boris Johnson gives an announcement. So every 3 weeks, as soon as he's given the announcement, you set yourself goals. You know you're going to be at home for 3 weeks. So what can you do in that 3-week window until the next time that he announces? So it's kind of controlling the controllables again, spoke about earlier.
Yeah, and I think once you, like you said, once you accept that, you're able to hone in on those kind of smaller little margins, and they all build into the bigger kind of that trajectory again to build you back up. But yeah, I think the powerfulest tool is actually, like I said, is accepting and actually being like, right, it's done now. I can't change it. Again, this goes into psychology and everything else. But for me, it was like, right, I've done this now. I can't change it. The next route to go to is this. And then from there, okay, fine, I've got A to B. So I've got A to C or like the end goal. How do I get those small little stepping stones to get there? It's a nice phrase.
Yeah, no, I really like that. And this is a little bit of a tangent. I think, Frazer, you can answer this question with your background really well. How much should, this is not me, this is from a parent, how much should my teenager, who's around 14 to 18 years old, be eating, sleeping, and training?
Big question.
Right. Big question.
Yeah, your whole job in one sentence.
Right, okay. So here we go. I'll sit on the fence straight away. It's an individual basis for every person, but I'd say it's hard to put a number on it. I wouldn't worry about how much training the person's doing. What I would worry about is how much they're eating and how much they're sleeping. So getting their recovery right, and then their training will be absolutely fine. So the first thing that I would focus on would be, is your kid, your 14 to 18-year-old, are they getting enough fruit and veg? Are their micronutrients good enough in their diet? Are they getting good qualities of protein in their food? And are they not eating copious amounts of junk food? So if you can get their recovery from their diet right to start with, we're already in a really good step in the right direction. I would then focus massively on sleep. Are they sleeping anywhere between 8 to 10 hours plus every single night, especially at the moment where a lot of them aren't at school, so there's no excuse for them to have to get up early in the morning to get buses to school, etc. The amount of kids that we see that are only sleeping for 5-6 hours a night because of they're up on their devices, messaging their friends, blah blah blah. These are the key years where their sleep is so important, and I'm sure all the parents are probably screaming at night going, in 10 years time, when you've got a real job and you understand that you only get 4 or 5 hours sleep every single night, you wish that you'd slept when you were a kid. So I think nutrition, fruit, veg, protein, really important. Sleep 8 to 10 hours a night. And then I think the training load will fall into that, because I think naturally most kids are quite resilient. They're obviously going through puberty, so sometimes they'll feel super strong. They have a growth spurt, they come out the end of it and they're feeling top notch, really good, or they're on a massive downer because they're going through the growth spurt and all of their energy that the body's producing is going into making them grow. So actually training and doing strength training or fitness or skills or whatever it is really tough, because their body's honing all the energy into the growth. So I think you have to manage it on an individual basis. If your kid is really struggling and they look like they're struggling, it might not be because they're overtraining, because the chances are they might only be doing an hour a day or something. It's more likely to be they're either in a growth spurt or their sort of background stuff, their nutrition, their sleep, their hydration is terrible, and that's actually what's letting them down. So you might be flogging them as a parent with their education, you might be flogging them that they need to go out and spend some time doing activities, but then forgetting the fact that they're not sleeping and that they're eating junk food in copious amounts. So I think if you look at Dan being the sort of the ultimate athlete, which I don't like to give him a big head, but he's a good athlete. All right, he has good sleep, he has good food, he looks after his body, he does his mobility, he's hydrated, he does his training, and then he has his downtime. And I'd say probably the bit that's missing from that for him at the moment, I'd say, Dan, I'm not answering for you, but is your sleep's down because of your kids. So then does that affect your recovery and your mood the next day?
Yes. Massively.
As we can see, he's a little bit touchy sometimes. So, but yeah, so for your training load and your recovery as a kid, and if you're a parent worried about it, look at it as an individual basis. Try and keep an eye and see whether they are doing a lot more training than they usually do, or is it still just an hour a day or an hour and a half a day? But then look at the external things. How's their sleep? How's their food? How much revision or how much studying they do? How much are they sat on a computer game all day, sat down? That sort of stuff. That would be what I would be worried about.
Yeah, I think the more we kind of delve through these questions, the more we're kind of understanding that how important the parents are, and it potentially may seem really daunting, like for a parent to be like, well, how do I know, how they're feeling or whatever else? And that's probably the hardest skill of being a parent. And when I look back at growing up, again, I had that rebellion stage. You don't want to listen to your parents. It's just understanding that obviously it takes time when you're in your 20s to actually listen to your parents. So from a parent's point of view, it's just persevering, it's care and understanding. Those are the easy ones to kind of work on. And if you're able to be, understanding of what your child's going through, and you're able to, have a good skill set and understanding how to better them, like trying to marry up the plans is sometimes hard, but I think long term it adds a lot of value.
I think to finish off on that, Han, as well, is parents can upskill themselves always. You can always read and you can always learn from journals and videos and stuff like this, and ask experts in the area about, what might my teenager be going through at the moment. If you understand what puberty looks like between this age and this age, and girls are predominantly going to be like this, boys are going to be predominantly like this through years, and you can spot the key signs. It's not saying that you have to back off and go, let's let them have it easy because they're going through puberty, but you can start to realise, might be a little bit more touchy now, so they're going to snap back at me, so maybe I need to change my parenting. So it's a bit like our coaching styles, how we coach various people, how we coach different sort of groups. You have to potentially parent with a different coaching style, take one hat off and put a different coaching hat on and go,
Yeah.
right, they're going through a tough time at the moment with exams and hormones, etc. So I'm going to be more of an empathetic parent, or actually they're to put a different hat on, they're just being ridiculously lazy and rebellious, and I need to try and find a different strategy for it.
I suppose that's the adaptability that you kind of learn being a coach, and even on the receiving end as an athlete, you learn that kind of adaptability to work with, you know, different moods. Everyone's kind of going through something. And I think that's